What is going on, Los Angeles Dodger fans? Hope everyone had a nice and wonderful Christmas. We are here live on New Year's Eve, December 30th. It's Kevin Klein. I am joined by Chris Camello. You are listening to the Incline Dodgers podcast presented by TickPick and BLEAV. We've got not a lot of Dodger news to get into, but there is a trade. We'll talk about that Dodgers trade that happened a day ago, as well as some recent Dodger rumors. I'm going to get Chris's thoughts on this offseason. We've got a fun couple segments we're going to dive into, as well as we look ahead to 2026 as the Dodgers try to three-peat, something that has not been done in Major League Baseball in a very long time. But if there's any organization that's capable of it, it is those Los Angeles Dodgers. Make sure to smash that like button, hit that subscribe button as well if you're new, whether you're listening on the audio feed or watching live or playback on YouTube. Drop your questions along the way, and let's get into this thing. So let me pass it off to Chris. It's been very quiet, especially just across Major League Baseball in general. We've got a happy birthday nod to Sandy Koufax from Alicia Jones. How you doing, Chris? How have you been? How are the holidays?
Well, I hope everyone, holidays were great. Thanks for having me on, Kev. Always happy to be on with you on the penultimate day of what's been a wild 2025 year. And so hope everyone out there, all your listeners from the Incline Dodger faithful had a great Christmas, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, whatever you go out there celebrate, or just enjoyed the time off. Hopefully everyone had a good one. Dude, I was all over the place. And, with the Italians, we love our seafood dinner. The 7 fishes on Christmas Eve. That's what I was doing. Fortunately, it wasn't like the what you would see on The Bear. No one threw forks at anybody, so that was good. At least, intentionally threw forks at anybody, but it was good. Got to spend some time with the family, my girlfriend, exchange gifts, niece, nephews, brothers, my dad. It was great. Yeah. So, but definitely excited to be on with you tonight, my friend.
Let's hope the Dodgers can bring us some good news. Maybe not to close out 2025 since it's almost the end, but maybe they kick off 2026 with some big moves. But I'm not going to lie. It's been a rough December as an LA sports fan. The Rams have been getting their ass kicked. The Lakers are looking pedestrian. Austin Reeves injuries, Devontae Adams injuries. It's been a rough go. I'm not going to lie in December, but we'll turn the page and hope that 2026 brings some positive momentum our way. I want to kick the show off with a Dodgers trade that broke yesterday. That's not the most exciting trade by any stretch, but it's worth reporting because it did involve someone on the Dodgers 40-man roster. Esteury Ruiz is officially traded off to the Miami Marlins. So I'll talk about the return in a second. But what it means with Ruiz is this is a guy that's been tossed around a lot in his career. He started with the Royals, made his way over to the Padres, eventually got traded to the Brewers, spent some time with the Athletics. They then DFA'd him, got to have some playing time at the big league level with the Dodgers in this most recent season. And then they demoted him to AAA, never saw his way back up as he was essentially replaced by Justin Dean, who went on to be a part of the postseason roster and had some significant contributions in the playoffs defensively. For Ruiz, if he's not going to cut it with the Dodgers, I don't really have much optimism for him for the rest of his big league career. He really struggled as a hitter. His only upside is stolen bases. Any thoughts on Ruiz getting traded or his futures at the big league level?
Yeah, I was a little disappointed with him. I really thought he could come in here, Kevin, and provide an element of speed, a late game addition that could get on the base pads and wreak havoc and, be a somewhat of a competent hitter. In addition to maybe providing something defensively. And he just, unfortunately, didn't really do any of those things consistently. This was a guy that, what did he steal? Like 60 some odd bases with the Oakland A's just a couple of years ago. So, I mean, the fact that he came in here and was really just pedestrian. And this is, Kev, when you come in here with a part-time role, you got to maximize those opportunities. Obviously people are going to say like, well, just like Miguel Rojas or Kike Hernandez, but not everybody's built that way. And, it could be tough sometimes to come in, especially in a sport like baseball, where you need the larger sample size to really see what you can do in an everyday role. but he just was not able to do that. So I think the Dodgers said, you know what, rather than DFA him, let's shop him around. Let's see if anyone wants him. They found a taker in the Marlins. They get this kid, I believe his name is Adriano Marrero, from who's 18 years old, a former draft pick of the Houston Astros, I believe, and found himself in the Marlins organization. So from what I've seen, he's got a really wicked slider. He's obviously young. He's 18. And certainly somebody that the Dodgers could stash in their minor league system, try to develop and see where he's going to be in the next couple of years, and maybe follow a trajectory similar to like an Edgardo Henriquez, but hopefully with a little bit more upside. Other than that, it's sort of a, we were going to DFA him anyway, so now that we got some value for him, might as well take a flyer on this kid, right?
Yeah, I think this was a slam dunk move by the Dodgers, regardless of what happens, because as you just mentioned, this guy had no future with the Dodgers. Pretty much to kick off the offseason, I expected him to be DFA'd. And the fact that they were able to get something of value for him, and there's already prospect analysts out there raving about this kid. So I think this is just a brilliant, flashy move by the Dodgers that's going to pay off in the near future. For Ruiz, yeah, he really struggled with the Dodgers. Very small sample size at the pros, or I should say at the big league level, but he only hit 190. I don't even remember him hitting a home run, to be honest, but he did have a few stolen bases.
Might have been a garbage time one.
I remember him. He worked to count to get on base. It was either to load the bases or the bases were loaded, and he drove in a run. But I remember that was Ruiz's one highlight for the Los Angeles Dodgers. But yeah, to talk about the guy they got in return, you already nailed it. 18-year-old Cuban phenom. At the age of 17, he's already hitting 93 miles per hour. Obviously, he's still really young and has a lot of room for development. But so far in his minor league sample size, he made 10 starts, had a 3.82 ERA, 35 strikeouts across 33 innings, and you touched upon throws a really good slider. So there's a lot of potential here with Adriano Marrero. So the fact that the Dodgers were able to get something from Ruiz, I think that speaks volume to them taking advantage of the market. So not much else to add for Ruiz, but worth noting, with him off the 40-man now, there is one spot available if they were to sign someone tomorrow.
Yeah, and obviously it's that Japanese pitcher who said he didn't want to play for the Dodgers. I know his posting timeline, I think, is up tomorrow, right? So I know he's available out there, but it's really been a slow I forgot his name off the top of my head, but now the White Sox are apparently the White Sox are, you know what, give them credit. They're waiting out all of these Japanese guys, and they're ending up signing them for less years and less money than they probably thought that they were going to get. But yeah, I think right now that's what it does, Kev. It clears up a pathway to get another player. If you wanted to go out and get a reliever, if you wanted to go out and sign another, position player, we've been talking about, adding to the bullpen, which they did with Edwin Diaz. But, do you go out there and maybe sign more of a middle reliever or late innings reliever? Maybe you bring back one of your guys like a Michael Kopech on a short-term deal, and Evan Phillips on a one-year deal, non-guaranteed, or do you go the outfielder route? So we'll see what they end up doing. I don't think they're going to get anyone right now, but you're right. The MLB free agency frenzy has really, really slowed down. We've seen a few trades here and there. We've seen a couple of, mid-tier signings, a couple of extensions, but we really have not had a lot of big splashes, and there are still a lot of big-time free agents out there. And we were even hearing Ketel Marte. I thought we were any day now he was going to get traded by the Diamondbacks. And now, who is it? Mike Raisin, the GM of the Arizona Diamondbacks, saying that we're going to probably, if we don't find a taker, we're going to, take him off the market. So it's a weird time right now. But all the Dodgers can do is continue to stockpile some of these guys who can, on non-guaranteed deals, put them into the minor league system and continue to develop them and just try to see what they can do from there.
Yeah, the pitcher you're referring to is Tatsuya Imai. I feel like he's been really holding up this free agent market in general. It seems like everyone's just waiting for this guy to land on a team. He has to sign by Friday, but with the fact that it's New Year's Eve Wednesday, New Year's Day Thursday, he's got to kind of pick this up now, because that holiday, a lot of people are not going to want to work on New Year's Day. So I feel like he's going to have to probably figure out his shit tomorrow, and then they can finalize it on Friday, because time is ticking for this guy. And you already mentioned the White Sox appear to be the front runner. I am just kind of shocked that the Chicago White Sox of all teams would be in the lead for this guy. I think that speaks more negatively right now on the stock of Imai as opposed to the value, as opposed to what Imai himself is worth. So if the White Sox are in the league, the rest of the league might be kind of viewing this guy negatively right now. So he might still have a lot to prove. He's not going to be a Dodger. I can guarantee that part.
Sure, and we haven't seen a lot of big signings, and I just don't know what these teams, clearly, somebody saying that slider's not fooling anybody or something. So, I mean, clearly something is up with this guy. But the fact, Kev, that he's holding up free agency, I don't necessarily buy that. Free agency had already kind of stalled out in the meantime. Like, what's the excuse for not signing Kyle Tucker or Bo Bichette or Alex Bregman or Luis Ariz or some of these other, big names? Cody Bellinger is still floating out there as well. What's the excuse there? You know what I'm saying? But let me say this about the White Sox and even the Pittsburgh Pirates. I am glad to see these guys as buyers in free agency. Ryan O'Hearn just signed a 2-year deal, $29 million with the Pittsburgh Pirates. That's like the most money they've given out since Ivan Nova back in 2016. That's a name we haven't heard in a while from the New York Yankees. So it's good to see these small market teams going out and at least pretending to try to be competitive. Obviously, a Murakami or an O'Hearn are not going to, elevate those teams to an exorbitant level. However, it also goes to show that these owners are finally investing into their squads and showing these fans that we are trying to be competitive at least through the first part of the season.
I think Kyle Tucker is what's holding this market up. Everyone's looking around the league and waiting for Kyle Tucker to pick his next destination. That has an impact, in my opinion, on where Bo Bichette would land, because if Kyle Tucker goes to Toronto, I assume Bichette goes elsewhere. But if Kyle Tucker does not go to Toronto, you would have to think that then there's a lot of momentum in Bichette returning to the Toronto Blue Jays. On top of that, you've got Alex Bregman still waiting, Cody Bellinger. The guy apparently wants more years than I think both the Mets and Yankees feel he's worth. So there's a lot of stalling on that front. And then on top of that, we're waiting on Okamoto to sign, and it's looking like he's going to end up with the Pittsburgh Pirates. So good for Pittsburgh. They've been really aggressive this winter.
Yeah. No, but here's the thing. I know, because here's why that's important, Kev. And I couldn't agree with what Dave Roberts said more. You want to put a salary cap in the league? Go put a salary cap. However, also put a salary floor, so that the way these owners don't just say, look at the Dodgers, they're ruining baseball, them over there. Well, hold on a second, trust fund baby. What's your excuse? You're worth what? $2-3 billion. You don't have the money to go out and spend on free agency. I mean, come on, man. So that's what I'm saying. It is good for these organizations, if nothing else, to try to increase the attendance for these teams, so that way it looks like you even care about being competitive next year, meaning the White Sox, the Pittsburgh Pirates, even the Miami Marlins. They just signed Pete Fairbanks. It's good that these teams are, trying to, upgrade their squads and try to at least look like they're being competitive. That's what I'm saying. So we'll see what happens.
You remember World Series champion Kirby Yates, Chris? Do you remember Kirby Yates?
Oh, yes. The man who, sat on his contract, made $13 million last year, and between the hamstring issues and getting crushed, by the opposing hitters. Yeah, I remember him quite well.
All right. Well, Mr. Ass Tattoo is staying in Southern California, but luckily for Dodger fans, he's going across the I-5. He just signed a $5 million deal with the Angels. Just wanted to point that out. He was really bad for the Dodgers. So bad they didn't trust him to pitch at all in the playoffs. It was really a huge step backwards. ERA like slightly above 1 to an ERA above 5 last season. The splitter just was not splitting for him. A lot of the opponents were crushing that splitter. He gave up a number of home runs as well. Well, he's off to the Angels. This is not the first time that the Angels have taken the Dodgers sloppy seconds. So we'll see if he can reinvent himself at like the age of 40 in Anaheim. But Kirby Yates will not be coming back.
There was another. Yeah, no, and I didn't expect him to either, not unless, they were going to give him a non-guaranteed contract. But I think it's also, too, and I forgot about this, there's a new pitching coach with the Angels, Mike Maddox, who takes over because obviously they just hired Kurt Suzuki, and Maddox is now the pitching coach. And, the 2024 season that allowed Yates to get that big contract by the Dodgers, many believe the reason why he was so good that year was because Mike Maddox helped him figure things out. So now he gets reunited with a very good pitching coach in Maddox, who can hopefully get him back to that form that made him an all-star caliber pitcher in 2024. So, we'll see what happens. The Angels, they're going with a lot of one-year guys, a lot of fix-it projects, a lot of prove-it deals, and I don't blame them for going that route. Why invest in a lot of these guys when, there's no guarantees that they're going to be good. So if it works out, great. If it doesn't, we could just cut tie them and not have a lot of guaranteed salary on the book. So, wish Kirby the best of luck, except when he faces the Dodgers. But I mean, of course, when the Dodgers and Angels face off, Kevin, that freeway series, Kirby is going to go out there, and I'm sure he's going to pitch well against LA.
Yep.
It never fails.
So with there being no action right now in Dodgers world, there really aren't any recent rumors either. All the insiders have fallen asleep. It seems like maybe they're just taking the week off because of the holidays. We have to pivot, and we have to come up with fun segments every now and then. So on Christmas Day, Andre Ethier received 95% of all votes to be elected into the MLB Hall of Pretty Good. Now, this is not an actual official hall. It's more of kind of just an online, thing. MLB has no actual sponsorship to this, but you can follow them on Instagram. You can follow them at X. Their handle, at least on X, is Hall of Good Pod. They've got a good following of about 44,000. MLB Hall of Pretty Good. Andre Ethier, I feel like, is the poster child. When you think of like that guy is Hall of Pretty Good, Andre Ethier is one of the first names that comes to mind, because that is exactly what Andre Ethier was. He was just really good. Definitely not a Hall of Famer, but was really good. So happy to see him get in. So that inspired me to come up with some Dodger players. Ideally, they're not still active, or ideally, they're not going to be in the actual Hall of Fame for the course of this discussion. So I had a few names that I want to throw out there. We'll go back and forth. Chris, if you had any prepared, we'll go for you as well. Sure. But I wanted to start it off with my first guy that I think belongs in the Hall of Really Good. And if some of these are already in, then feel free to let me know, chat. But the first name that comes to mind for me of a guy that I think is deserving of, really good, Rafael Furcal. When I think of like that guy was a really good shortstop, Rafael Furcal is definitely one of the first names that comes to mind. He ended up finishing his career with basically a 40 career WAR. He spent of his 14 MLB seasons, 6 of them were with the Los Angeles Dodgers. And I'm fairly certain this was one of Ned Colletti's first moves to kick off his tenure as Dodger general manager in 2006, when he signed Rafael Furcal to a pretty nice lucrative deal at the time. He ended up just being an all-star with the Dodgers once in 2010. But all in all, this guy was a career 281 hitter, 748 OPS. Looks like he had 113 total career home runs with the Dodgers. Just to kind of point out his sample size alone, was also a 283 hitter, so very consistent with both the Braves and the Dodgers. He won a World Series as well with the St. Louis Cardinals. But Rafael Furcal, you get a shout out. I feel like you are really solid defensive shortstop as well. Really good.
Yeah, I like that one. Yeah, Rafael Furcal had a couple of good years there in the mid 2000s. He came over from Atlanta, kind of shored up that shortstop position, and the Dodgers started making the playoffs more consistently with him there. He was also one of the first guys. I think him, kind of Ichiro too. They started doing that swinging bunt. So they were true leadoff hitters. What was great about Furcal, he had a rocket of an arm at shortstop, but also had some really good pop too. And that was another element of his game that was just, fantastic. So, yeah, I like that pick. I think we'd be remiss. I don't have a lot prepared, Chaz, and obviously it's not fair to this one because he was just on the Hall of Fame ballot right now, and that's Matt Kemp. 284 career average, 287 home runs, 1,031 RBIs, 21.6 WAR. Didn't play his whole career with the Dodgers, but he was part of that youth movement in, 2005, but more or less like '06. He started coming up there, and him, along with your guy, Andre Ethier, really started to kind of put together, that they became the face of the franchise for a number of years. Unfortunately, they weren't good enough to get over that hump and into the World Series, but Matt Kemp with the power, the speed that, used to be called the Bison. He was one of those guys that could give you like 40-40, the athleticism and everything like that. So, unfortunately, he got signed to that albatross of a contract. It didn't quite pan out after that 2011 season. When he was robbed of the MVP by Ryan Braun, but you cannot deny, even if he does not make the Hall of Fame, which I think he's a borderline case. I have a feeling he's going to fall short. I think definitely he deserves to be in the Hall of Very Good because of all the elements that he brought to the table. And he was also clutch too, especially that 2018 season, the reunion tour with the Dodgers. He was fantastic. A lot of walk-off hits, a lot of clutch hits. And, it was good to see him finally playing a World Series that year, even though the Dodgers lost.
We're in alignment here. Matt Kemp was also on my list of Hall of Pretty Good. At his very peak, he should have won an MVP in 2011, but Ryan Braun cheated his way ahead of Matt Kemp, even though Kemp led the league in home runs, WAR, and RBIs that season. He was just a monster. I'm surprised he actually wasn't an all-star more times than 3. That's a little surprising to me that he was just a 3-time All-Star. Would have thought it would have been more than that. But yeah, Matt Kemp, definition of Hall of Pretty Good.
2 gold gloves, 2 silver sluggers, by the way. I just want to throw that out there. 2 gold gloves and 2 silver sluggers. Was a 1-time All-Star and was the MVP of the 2018 All-Star game. So I wanted to throw that out there too. Go ahead. Yeah.
Dodger Dugan has my next one. Sean Green. Absolutely definition of Hall of Pretty Good.
Yes.
Because this guy, wherever he played, the Blue Jays, the Dodgers, even Mets. Arizona for a split second, Mets. The guy hit home runs. The guy had a lot of power, and he was just a pretty good baseball player. Lifetime across 15 seasons, had a 283 batting average with a career 850 OPS, had 328 career home runs. Most notably in one game, had a 4 home run game as a Los Angeles Dodger. And at that time, which I believe was broken, maybe it was by Shohei Ohtani, had the most bases in a single game. But I think Ohtani may have broken that in Miami.
4 home runs,
if I'm not mistaken.
4 home runs in 2004. I believe it was September of 04. I'll never forget. I was in high school. And I was a freshman in high school. And I remember, this was during the time you didn't have cell phone access to these things. But I remember my teacher had it on because they were playing a day game at Milwaukee. And we were like, oh my God, Sean Green just hit 4 home runs in a single game. So yeah, that was one of his last years with the Dodgers, was in 2004, and he was outstanding. So yeah, I definitely agree with that. Definitely the Hall of Pretty Good. His best years, I would say, were probably with the Toronto Blue Jays, Kev, but his Dodger tenure was not as bad as people thought. I just think because there were so many missed playoff years, and that this guy, along with Gary Sheffield and Adrian Beltre, were supposed to be, getting the Dodgers, into that next tier, it never did. So that's why you're right. That's why they do fall into the Hall of Pretty Good.
Yeah, not to step on your toes, but his best years actually were with the Los Angeles Dodgers. He played 5 years with the Dodgers, had 162 career home runs, played 7 seasons with the Blue Jays, had 119 career home runs. His best WAR seasons individually were back-to-back with the Dodgers, had a 7 WAR in 01, a 7 WAR in 02. His looks like his best OPS as well. It was with Toronto, 972, but he did have a 970 with the Dodgers. So his power, I think, really flourished for whatever reason as a Dodger, because his career high in home runs was 49 of them in 2001.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I thought he hit more home runs in Toronto, but I stand corrected. But I mean, Sean Green definitely is on there. So I think that's a good shout out. I also think, and I know this was kind of he was just on the committee for it. how do we not put Fernando Valenzuela, into the Hall of Fame? He definitely belongs. Obviously, he's on the Hall of Pretty Good. And if you don't believe that Fernando is on there just for, I mean, you look at his stats in that brief time with the Dodgers, and they don't win that 81 championship without, without El Toro, man. He was absolutely phenomenal. So definitely deserves to be a Hall of Famer, but the cultural impact, especially in Los Angeles, I think that sometimes also has to amount to something. And, Fernando, I think he was a 2-time World Series champ because I think he was on the 88 team. He didn't pitch in the World Series, but he was still on the team. The number of complete games, the number of strikeouts, Fernando, may rest in peace, is still a Dodger and baseball icon that not only should be in the Hall of Very Good. I don't think anyone's doubting that. He should also probably be in the Hall of Fame. And I'm really surprised that committee, or whatever they call themselves, that they got that one wrong. No disrespect to Jeff Kent. That was one they really got wrong, along with Dale Murphy and Don Mattingly. I really thought those guys should have been on there as well. So, muchos gracias, Fernando, for everything, man.
I agree. I left him off intentionally because I'm still holding out hope that he does get into the Hall of Fame one day. So I didn't want to, cut him short and put him in this category. But I'll give you another name. So I'm going to go a little bit farther back in time. Here's a throwback. Kirk Gibson belongs in the Hall of Pretty Good. Now, he did most of his career work with the Detroit Tigers. He played 12 seasons with Detroit, but he had 3, and arguably his most impactful year, with the Los Angeles Dodgers. And there's only one year you can really go back to. When you think of Kirk Gibson, it's 1988. A lot of people, I think, forget he was the National League MVP in 1988. Not only did he have the most iconic walk-off home run for the longest time, and maybe still to this day as a Los Angeles Dodger in Game 1 of the 88 World Series, but he was the league MVP that year. And I mean, these are not MVP numbers per se. He hit 290 with just 25 home runs, and that was good enough to win an MVP and Silver Slugger. But I mean, lifetime, this guy was just solid. He had 255 career home runs, 38 career WAR, was a lifetime 268 hitter with an 815 career OPS. Kirk Gibson, Hall of Pretty Good.
Oh, I couldn't agree with you more. Not to mention one of the most iconic moments, not just in Dodger history, Kev, but in baseball history. 2 bad knees, stepping up against one of the elite closers in baseball at the time, and maybe even all-time in Dennis Eckersley. I mean, you talk about setting the tone for that series. He was, just an unbelievable moment. I know he's been battling health issues these last few years, but yeah, Gibby definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Pretty Good. Not enough on this show to really give him justice. I hope he's not on your list, but yeah, I saw his name pop on here, and I'm looking up his Dodger stats. Eric Kurls. I'm going to say it like Ross Porter. Eric Kurls. A former, spent 12 years with the Dodgers, a former Rookie of the Year in 92. I think he was part of that string of, I think he was the first one of that string of 5 straight Rookie of the Years from 92 to 96. He had 5 30 home run seasons, 500 RBI seasons, a rock solid 268 average, and a 782 OPS. He also is third in home at the time of his departure, third in home runs, 6th in RBIs, 8th in doubles, 8th in total bases, 5th in extra base hits. And Kev, he is still the only Dodger to hit 2 home runs in 1 inning. He did that in August of 2000. Eric Kurls was definitely part of that youth movement of the 90s. We talked about the youth movement of the mid-2000s, but he was part of that youth movement of the 90s. You know, a guy that came from UCLA, played in his own backyard with the Dodgers, and certainly deserves to be in the Hall of Pretty Good, man. Always loved Eric Kurls.
Yeah, Eric Kurls was definitely a name that crossed my mind. I had a feeling somebody was going to name him, whether it was you or in the chat, which both occurred. I'm going to do a quick honorable mention of a future Hall of Pretty Good, and then I'll give my last name. Walker Buehler is going to be eventually in this Hall of Pretty Good, but he's still active and not retired, and could somehow, I guess, if magic were to come his way, become a Hall of Fame pitcher. It would be very unlikely, but, you know, anything's possible. But I have a feeling 10 years from now, we'll be talking about Walker Buehler being one of those, he was pretty good as a Los Angeles Dodger. He really fits that mold to me, but he is not retired yet, obviously. So the last one I'm going to mention, he didn't really do a whole lot for the Dodgers, so I'm kind of straying away from the overall point here. But just another mention I want to throw out there, because I really admired this guy for his entire MLB career, not just his Dodgers short tenure. And I was surprised to see he got 0 votes on his one ballot. But Josh Beckett, this guy, I think, is an exceptional example of pretty good. He won multiple World Series. He helped the Red Sox win a World Series. He also obviously helped the Miami Marlins win a World Series way back in the day. He not only delivered in the postseason, but just overall for his career, 35 career WAR, 388 career ERA, 138 wins, 106 losses. But all in all, the guy was very consistent. Threw a no-hitter with the Dodgers and then got hurt, I think, like 2 starts later, and then never really pitched again. But Josh Beckett, Hall of pretty good. This guy, if you had the privilege of watching Josh Beckett back in the day, he's kind of like Walker Buehler of his time, in my opinion. Just a really good, consistent pitcher that was never a Cy Young candidate, but got the job done.
Oh, for sure. I think, it's funny. The equivalent for Josh Beckett to me would be like an Eli Manning, right? Where the regular season didn't always jump out, but this was the guy who you wanted to have the ball in his hands in October, going back to the 03 Marlins and then eventually the 07 Boston Red Sox. I mean, the guy was just the Texas gunslinger. He got that big 96-mile-an-hour fastball and kind of derailed him, but he was a gamer. And you're right, BC, he did humiliate the Yankees in 03. Jack McKeon said, and I quote, "No doubt in my mind, when I put him out there in Game 6 at Yankee Stadium, he was going to go the distance." And he did just that. I mean, he mowed down that lineup. So yeah, Josh Beckett is pretty good, just like with Eli Manning. The regular seasons don't jump out at you, but they had iconic moments in the playoffs. I would say Beckett, though, is closer to like a Ben Roethlisberger to me. I think that would be the best football equivalent. Just a clutch gamer and a guy that had a lot of success in the playoffs. So that's a good one too. I thought we were talking more or less their time with the Dodgers, but yeah, Josh Beckett is really good. I would have to say the last one for me, and there's a lot of them. I could throw honorable mentions. I think Russell Martin had some outstanding years with the Dodgers. You could put him out there. I think he made an all-star game or two with the Dodgers. I always like James Loney. He had some really good years. But I'll tell you this, and maybe I think eventually he will be a Hall of Famer, so I don't know if this will count, Kev, but I'm going to throw it out there. Kenley Jansen, 13-year stint with the Dodgers, 2010 to 2021. So, 12 years, excuse me. Kenley Jansen has been, I know his last couple of years were a struggle in LA, particularly like 2019 through about 2021. We saw him blow more saves and stuff. But you talk about year in and year out, there are not many closers who could be at an elite level for more than 5 years or more than 10 years. You're talking Mariano, you're talking Eckersley, you're talking guys like that. Him, Aroldis Chapman have done it in our generation. So we've got to give a tip of the cap to Kenley Fornia Love, man. That dude has been outstanding because it is not easy, especially relievers today. Here today, gone tomorrow, injuries, declining stuff, whatever it is. But the fact that you have been able to put out an amazing career, and I think when it's all said and done, he will get to the Hall of Fame. But specifically his years with the Dodgers were outstanding. And you talk about a converted catcher, Kev, a converted catcher to one of the game's best relievers, especially over this, the last 10, 15 years, is really incredible. So I don't know what you think about that. I don't know if he qualifies, but I wanted to put him on there anyway.
Definitely Hall of pretty good, except he's going to make the MLB Hall of Fame. I am locking that in. I think it's, if not a first ballot, second or third year, Jansen is going to make the Hall of Fame because he's going to retire with an absurd amount of saves.
Yeah.
The guy's done it for a long time and has been just elite for basically his entire career. And the Dodgers will have to retire number 74 one day.
Sure.
Jansen's getting in the Hall of Fame. Chase Utley, I see being mentioned as well. Another guy that I left off because he could get in the Hall of Fame potentially.
I agree. Yeah.
So I'm leaving that case open. I just went with guys that I was fairly certain are not getting in the Hall of Fame. So that's all I got. We've got another segment to jump into, but before we do that, anything, Chris, you wanted to talk about, whether it's rumors, players, guys you're targeting, and make sure to hit that like button. We're going to get to the next segment in a few minutes.
I'm looking at your chat over here, Kev, and I think we'd be remiss if we didn't say that the Dodgers in the winter of 2020 dodged a major bullet with Anthony Rendon. Today it was confirmed that he was going to be bought out, or not necessarily bought out. The remaining of his $38 million in the final year of his contract with the Angels was going to be part of the deferred payments. He's not technically retiring, so the roster spot is still there. So even this feels like it's more complicated than it should be. The guy has been a complete train wreck with the Angels, and now that time is done. And even though the Angels have a pretty stacked list of disappointments in their, especially over the last 20 years in the Artie Moreno era, let's say, I think this one will no doubt about it top the cake. 7 years, 230 mil they gave him. And he has just been absolutely horrendous. In addition to that, he didn't want to sign with the Dodgers because of the Hollywood lifestyle. Well, I'll tell you this. I don't think this dude should be going through anywhere in the OC, because I'm sure there's going to be a lot of bitter Angel fans at him as well. So, bro, you're not only not welcomed in Hollywood, you just burned the OC as well. So you may need to move out of state when it's time to officially retire. So, December 2019. What I meant to say was it was in the winter. It was going into the winter of 2020 before the 2020 season. I knew it was December 2019 or January of 20. I wasn't sure exactly when he signed, but Dodgers dodged one, literally. I know they wanted Rendon. He was coming off of an MVP caliber season. He was an all-star. He was an MLB champion that year with the Nationals. And I mean, who could have predicted him being that big of a train wreck? I mean, there's a time where you could underwhelm Chaz. I'm sorry, Kev. I confused you with my co-host. I'm sorry about that. There's a time where you could be underwhelming. There's another time when you just completely sit on your contract and bring nothing to the table. And that's exactly what Rendon was with the Angels, man. 7 for 245. Yeah, so I was close. Yeah.
Never wanted Anthony Rendon. I was off that train from the very start. Never bought a ticket. Never wanted to get on. And I'm a fortunate survivor, because anyone that was part of the Angels experience and bought those tickets, you crashed and burned, and you lived a pretty miserable Anthony Rendon Hollywood lifestyle experience. And nobody deserves that, to be honest. So it's kind of unfortunate that Rendon gets paid. He sucked. The team was bad. They didn't make the playoffs once. They haven't since 2014. And you have a guy that was vocal about not even liking to play baseball. How is that a good inspiration and motivator for your fans and upcoming generations of kids and stuff, knowing that one of your star players, at least the way he was being paid, was open and vocal saying, I don't like baseball. I'm just here to get my paycheck. I don't care what happens. I don't care about winning. It's sad.
It really is. And, like I said, this guy you go back to that free agency period, it was Garrett Cole, and then it was Anthony Rendon. I mean, that's the thing. So the Angels barely missed out on Garrett Cole, right? And then they said, let's go with the next best free agent. Let's give Mike Trout some protection in the order. We'll have a pretty good top of the lineup with Ohtani and Trout and Rendon. And it just completely blew up in their faces. And, not only, like you said, Kev, not only was he banged up a lot through most of these, 6 years, but he didn't even want to be out there. That's the worst part. His heart was not into playing the game. So, I mean, just terrible. So, yes, I understand. Justin Yamas, his name isn't Rendon. It's Hollywood lifestyle. I get it, but maybe not everyone gets it. So we get it. We collectively get it. But, yeah, this could be all for him. And hopefully he does, Kev, retire and move on to the sunset. Take your 38 mil, be the next Bobby Bonilla, and keep it pushing.
You just made Justin's night by giving 3 minutes to Anthony Rendon. Now let's get back to some serious subjects here. I want to talk about 5 Los Angeles Dodgers who I think are going to break out in 2026 and have meaningful contributions at the big league level for this team. And Chris, I'll also let you jump in with some players too if you have anyone you want to break out, because I'm sure we'll have some names in alignment, and then I'll piggyback off you. But I'm going to start with Dalton Rushing. I think 2026 is the year that Dalton Rushing starts to break out. What I mean by that is, first of all, he's going to have a significant amount of games catching. Now, hopefully Will Smith doesn't get hurt or anything, but we saw last season, you start Will Smith 2 days in a row, and then you rest him on the third day. And then you let Will Smith play 2 days in a row. You let him rest on the third day. And I expect that to be the plan again this season because it worked. The way Will Smith operates is, I think like every catcher these days, they're not Ironman. You need to rest them. You need to give them days off. Will Smith is at his best and his most productive in the postseason. And we saw that firsthand during 2025's World Series run when he had a fresh Will Smith. It paid huge dividends for the Dodgers. He had a huge home run in Game 7. He caught all 18 innings in Game 3. The guy was a valuable contributor all postseason. And I know that Ben Rortvedt kind of helped save the day in between when Will Smith was dealing with the fracture. But to get back to Dalton Rushing now, so he hit 204 last season in his kind of quote-unquote rookie season. I think he's going to get a lot more at-bats. They also said that they will play him at first base a little bit too. So I think with Freddie Freeman getting up there in age, it's okay to give Freddie Freeman off days. So for Dalton Rushing, I think he's going to go from a 204 batting average, and you'll see it closer to 250 to 260. He had 4 home runs last season. I think it's going to be between 12 to 16 range this upcoming year. So Dalton Rushing, my first candidate as a breakout guy.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I know not everyone may agree with that. And, but I think when you give some of these guys at bats, they could be solid. And, we're talking the name of this game is breakout, not the way I'm thinking is, and this may be even of a more important term is bounce back. So I think that there are a number of guys who we're thinking could bounce back this season, could potentially take that next step forward. One of the guys that I want to see bounce back and potentially break out would be Gavin Stone. I'd like to see him healthy. I'd like to see him kind of get back to where we saw him near the end of the 24 season before he started having the shoulder problems and had to miss all of last season recovering from shoulder surgery. So Gavin Stone, we know what this guy is capable of doing. He showed tremendous improvement from the 23, the 23 season. He was spotty, got going in 24 and was really solid for the Dodgers. Was sort of, along with Tyler Glasnow at the time, a frontline caliber starter for the Dodgers, amidst all those injuries. So it was sad that his season ended the way it did abruptly at the end of the 24 season. So I would like to see Gavin Stone remind people why he was such a big deal on the mound in 2024, and he can get hopefully close to that in 2026. It is a loaded rotation, but we know all of these guys are going to take turns with stints on the IL. So you're going to need someone in there to eat some innings, and hopefully Stone, will be able to ease his way back and be a presence on the mound. And, like I said, get back to where he was in 24.
Big fan of Gavin Stone. Did not have him on my list, but I do agree with you that he should serve a meaningful role for the Dodgers in this upcoming season. So we'll see how he looks. He's going to be one of the names that I'm really paying attention to closely this spring training to see how he looks. But yeah, Gavin Stone has proven that he has pretty good upside at the big league level and can dominate. My next guy, Emmett Sheehan. He had a really solid season for the Dodgers in 2025. But when you put it all in perspective, a year after having Tommy John surgery and coming back, he had a 293 FIP across 15 games appeared, 73 innings, 282 ERA. His velocity looked really good. His secondary stuff looked really good. They didn't need him to start in the playoffs. He came out of the bullpen, and I know he looked shaky at times, but he also showed some flashes of brilliance in a role that he was not comfortable in. But I think Emmett Sheehan's about to launch forward and have a huge, true breakout season in 2026. I am talking potential all-star. I am talking a guy that will probably make close to 25 to 28 starts for the Dodgers. I think his ERA will also be in line with a very low 3 to a high 2, 280, 290 ERA and FIP in that line as well. I think his slider is going to get better. I think he'll have better command of his changeup. And my hot take and one of my bold predictions as we move forward, I think he's going to be in the Dodgers playoff rotation. Now, I don't know if that'll be because there's an injury, but I do also think he's going to really challenge and potentially push Tyler Glasnow out of the playoff rotation. I think Sheehan is about to do things that are going to blow us away.
I hope you're right. I mean, I like Emmett Sheehan. I liked him back in 23. I know he had the Tommy John. And, you talk about a transition. I really thought this was going to be, we always talk about that first year coming off of Tommy John where you're not, quite feeling like yourself, right? There's a time of I'm healthy enough to pitch. And then there's another point that you reach of, do I start to feel like myself where I'm not as worried about the elbow or the shoulder or whatever the injury is. And I just think with Sheehan, he found that moment of I'm not worried about the injury quickly. And hopefully that continues, Kev. So, yeah, I'm pulling for Emmett Sheehan to be a stud on that back end of the rotation. Even, like you said, kind of jockey for position past the fearsome foursome of Ohtani, Yamamoto, Blake Snell, and Tyler Glasnow. And even if he doesn't, just him being in that rotation, just like I mentioned with Stone, is going to be invaluable because we know those guys worked a lot of innings last year, specifically in the playoffs, both as starters and relievers. So you're going to need, some guys to step up, especially in those early months of the season, and not only eat innings, but give you quality outings. And certainly Sheehan showed that capability last year. I mean, he was one of the top 5 starters last season, and there's, barring any sort of injury, knock on wood, he should be able to build on that in the 26 season. So I do like that pick, and hopefully he does take that next jump.
Do you have a name, or I can keep going?
No, keep going, brother. He was on my list too.
Okay. River Ryan, next guy up for the Dodgers. Another one who unfortunately had his not only his 2024 cut short, but then he missed all of 2025 as he was recovering from Tommy John surgery. But in a very short sample size, in 2024, the guy dominated. I really, really liked what I saw from River Ryan in, what was it? Let's see. Yeah, that's what I thought. 4 career starts, and I believe the last one was cut short. I think it was against the Athletics where he had to come out in like the 4th or 5th inning.
I think it was hold on. No. I was at that game. It was against the Pirates and Paul Skeens. It was against the Pirates and Paul Skeens, and he outdueled him, and he did come out. I think it was in the 5th inning. I was at that game. He was actually out pitching Paul Skeens at the time, and I was like, who is this kid over here? Because I hadn't really seen him much. But, yeah, I like that pick. I think he's more on par with Gavin Stone. Now, granted, it's an elbow injury with Tommy John as opposed to Stone with the shoulder. But the fact is you're going to need these guys early in the year as starters. I'm going to repeat that. You're going to need these guys early in the year as starters to go out there and do really well. And, hopefully, those are going to be one of those guys that you're looking at spring training that, obviously no one really watches spring games, but you're going to be watching his starts just to see how good he looks, how good the stuff is, the command, all of that stuff, to see if he's put the issues with his elbow behind him.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a guy that was ranked by some prospect evaluators like Fangraphs as the top pitching prospect in the Dodgers farm system. In River Ryan's early sample, he had a 1.33 MLB ERA and a 3.36 FIP. What River Ryan I'm expecting in 2026 for him, somewhere between probably 12 to 18 starts to relief appearances, will kind of depend on what the availability is or need, whether it's rotation or bullpen depth. But for River Ryan, I'm gonna throw it out there. I think he'll have an ERA in the 3s. I think he's gonna have max velocity at time where he's dotting 100 miles per hour. The thing for him will be, does he have command of those secondary pitches? Because that typically is a mechanical issue for guys coming back from Tommy John, is having full feeling in their for him, it'd be, I think he throws a cutter. I know he throws, I believe, a slider as well, maybe a changeup. I'd have to look that up. But credit to Dodgers Nation. I believe he went on with Doug McCain and said he's working on a new pitch that he's excited to surprise people with. So we don't know what that pitch is, but I'm excited for this guy's arsenal. I think he's a really talented pitcher, and River Ryan is my next guy up for breakout season in 2026.
Yeah, and I really hope he's able to do that and give the Dodgers, healthy innings. I mean, we talked last year that the guys we wanted to see bounce back were Bobby Miller and Dustin A and Tony Gonsolin. And now, I don't know what Miller's future is. May is gone. He just signed with St. Louis Cardinals before he got traded to Boston. Tony Gonsolin has been non-tendered. So, I mean, you just never know what's going to quite happen with some of these pitchers. But I think what's good about these guys is the fact that we really have not seen what they can do yet. So they're under team control. If it doesn't work out, you have so much pitching depth. You could tap into that with the Robleskis or, Ben Kasparius or guys like that, to eat up innings, Landon Knack as well, if you need to. But if it works out with these guys, meaning Ryan and Stone and Emmett Sheehan, man, you talk about depth, man. And if nothing else, you potentially have some trade candidates if you are able to build up their value in order to address another need. So that's another element that you could explore if you want. So we shall see what happens with that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what River Ryan can do next season, because I think this is a guy that could be, not only for the now, but even for the later as well.
All right, the next one up. So first, honorable mention, Will Klein. I've talked about him a lot this offseason. I think he's going to be a high leverage guy. But my next breakout guy, Ronan Kopp. For those unfamiliar with Kopp, they added him to the 40-man this offseason to protect him from the Rule 5 draft, because he would have been eligible and most likely taken this most recent season across both AA and AAA. He had a 3.43 ERA, but what really stands out about his game is he threw almost 58 innings and had 91 strikeouts. He's a lefty that throws hard and gets a lot of strikeouts. For the Dodgers, I think they're going to make his game very simple, and it's going to be throw that fastball and we'll help you with your sweeper. So for Ronan Kopp, I think he's going to kind of be like the Jack Dreyer of this upcoming season, where he's going to shine in spring training. They're going to have an injury or two. Someone like Bonda is going to get traded or cut because he's struggling, and they're going to slide in Ronan Kopp, and he's going to log some meaningful relief innings. He's my next guy up as a breakout candidate for the Dodgers.
Yeah, I'm not too sure on that. I'll take your word for it. I'm not going to speak on guys that I'm not as familiar with. So, Kev, you seem to did your homework right there, man. Nicely done. Ronan Kopp, hopefully he ends up being everything that you say he'd be, and somewhat, even if not a valuable contributor, for the 2026 season, because, I do believe it's going to be all hands on deck, especially for those early months of the season.
And I saved my hottest and my boldest prediction for last. Drum roll, please. Any guesses?
I'm going to say, well, you mentioned Will Klein. Is it? And it's either, I'm going to say either Roki Sasaki, or is it a position player? Maybe Josh DePaula or something like that.
Oh, there you got it.
Oh,
last
is that
but not
DePaula?
least, Josue DePaula, breakout
DePaula,
candidate for 2026. What I mean by that is, I don't know how it's going to happen. It's either going to be an injury or somebody's not going to play up to par, and they're going to need to make a call up in July, June, August. I don't know. I can't predict the future. But anywho, there's going to be an opening, and they're going to say it's time to take a shot on Josue DePaula, who, by all scouts, all evaluators, it's pretty much across the board right now that he has the best pure hitting tools in the Dodgers farm system. He's also the number one prospect right now in their farm system for a reason. He only has a very small handful of at-bats at the AA level, but so far he's just been raking everywhere he's played, and not a doubt in my mind that he's going to just burst onto the scene in AA and then maybe get called up to AAA for a few at-bats, or just go from straight AA to the majors. But Josue DePaula, calling it now, breakout candidate, logs some MLB at-bats for the Dodgers. I can't speak to how he will do at the big league level, but I think he will debut in 2026 and start his Dodgers legacy. And so he's going to break out.
Yeah, I was going to go with somebody like that too. You got to think the Dodgers are they're loaded with good minor league outfielders. It's not just DePaula, Ryan Ward, Zaire Hope, guys that we've even seen contribute during, in the minor league level during spring training last year and everything like that. They just got this kid Tibbs in the deal for Dustin May last year from the Boston Red Sox. Eduardo Quintero is actually ranked higher than some of these guys. So, Mike Sirota, who they got, I believe it was in the Cincinnati Reds deal, Gavin Luck. So they are loaded with minor league outfielders. And I'm wondering who will be the next one, because let's face it, the outfield has a questionable future. We don't know what's going to happen with Andy Pages. Does he continue to take that next step forward? Teoscar Hernandez has got 2 more years guaranteed. And then what? There's kind of a situation right now, like, what do they do with left field? Is Tommy Edman going to be an outfielder? So there's a lot of questions, and you're wondering how many of these young outfielders, including a guy like DePaula, can kind of help not only fill that void, but now become the next, the future of the team in the process. We haven't really seen a Dodger position player get to that next point. Andy Pages is coming off of a fantastic year, and hopefully that continues. But if you could have a guy like Pages and a DePaula to now go with him in that outfield, that's going to be fun to watch for a long time. So I hope you're right on that, man. And I think another guy to watch out for in the not so distant future would also be Zaire Hope, but I just don't think it'll be this season for him. And honorable mention for me, Roki Sasaki. Hopefully he figured some things out pitching out of the bullpen that he could then carry over as a starter, a la Adam Wainwright from 2006. And he could take it, maybe not a breakout season, but take that next step forward. I'll settle for that.
Definitely. Last call for questions. So if anyone has questions for me or Chris, Dodgers related, miscellaneous, you want us to talk movies or music or food or whatever your question is, drop that in the YouTube chat as we're going to head out in a couple minutes here. So get those final questions in. But let me throw it back to you, Chris. Anything else that you've just had takeaways from this Dodgers offseason or MLB in general that you wanted to just get off your mind?
Yeah, it's just been kind of a weird offseason because, and it feels like this has been happening a lot more lately, where these star players don't sign right away. We didn't really have it last year, and you're getting trolled about Michael Grove and whatnot. Okay, Michael Grove is done with the Dodgers, and who knows, his career might be on life support right now. We'll see. But I do think that, it does suck some of the wind out when you don't have these star players sign within a reasonable time frame when free agency starts. So, seeing Tucker and Bichette and Bregman and a lot of these other, Framber Valdez, Ranger Suarez, a lot of these guys unsigned, going into January, it's just a little bizarre to me. And I just don't think it's good for the game, brother. I really don't.
All right. We got some good questions here. And I agree with you. First up from BC, incline meetup next year, maybe a watch along and then at a game. This is definitely something that I wanted to work on. I failed to do it last season when I should have. Just was a very hectic year. But yes, I'm going to work on figuring out an incline meetup sometime probably in the summer, and we'll make it happen. So stay tuned on that. The best way to stay on top of that is either joining the Discord channel or following us on social media, and we'll make it happen. So thank you, BC, for keeping me honest on that. Next up, Dodger Dugan, over under wins for the Dodgers in 2026. I've not even thought about this yet, but let me try to do some quick research. Do you have a number, Chris?
Yeah, and it's not going to be 100. 95 wins. 95 wins. They are not invested in the Dodgers are not interested in setting franchise records for wins. They don't care. They just want to make the playoffs healthy and win as many as is allowed to take the division. So I'm going to say 95, maybe 96 wins. So we'll see. But I don't think it's going to be north of 100 next year, brother. I can tell you that.
Yeah. So this recent year, 93 wins is what they finished with. The year before, 98 wins. Both were World Series wins at the end of the day, so which is what ultimately mattered. In a punt year, which I believe was a true punt year in 2023, they won 100 games, but then they lost in the first round. So I'm not a big wins guy, to be honest. Like, just win the division and then play your best baseball in September and October. But right now, if I was Vegas, I would probably set the line at 103.5, and I'll take the under.
Yeah, definitely. I'll take the under on that too, because the guys are gonna miss time. A lot of those guys, especially the pitchers, are gonna miss at least a month. You know what I mean? So that's just what it is. I'm not gonna hold my breath on that. Like I said, if you could somehow get one of the 2 bye spots, which they did not get this past year, that went to the Phillies and the Brewers. If you can get the division and a first round bye, I think it's a successful regular season. So we'll see what happens. But I'm not really worried about the win losses and everything. It's just about playing your best baseball and being healthy at the right time.
Agreed. Don't think we have any other questions, but we'll get into our final thoughts. And if anything does pop up last second, we'll give you guys a shout out. So my final thoughts, I'm just going to quickly reflect on 2025 real quick. So the regular season, especially this year, honestly, it was a rocky road. Not going to lie. Like, this was a very frustrating regular season. I think most of this fan base, including myself, if I'm being honest, had a lot of doubts about this team. Between Teoscar Hernandez just being lousy defensively in right field, Blake Snell missing a lot of time after getting the bag, Tyler Glass now missing a lot of time once again after he's been being paid $30+ million. Shohei Ohtani doing these 1 inning outings, and you're just kind of like, what are we doing here? Like, I get the buildup, but like the 1 inning stuff and then going to the bullpen games. Roki Sasaki having a terrible rookie season. They went through stretches where they just weren't delivering offensively. And then they kind of proved that they can get this locked in for October, and they played their best baseball. So we poo-poo what happens in the regular season, because at the end of the day, they won the World Series and proved they were the best team. That's going to be kind of my mindset moving into 2026 as well, where I think you don't overreact to a lot of the things that happen. There are certain things where you're right to bash a player, like Michael Conforto. Michael Conforto was bad. You can panic about Michael Conforto, but at the same time, if Shohei Ohtani goes into a little slump, let's say, because that happened this most recent season, don't panic, because most likely Shohei Ohtani is going to have his numbers by the end of the year. So I think you kind of have to find a fine line between rational and irrational, and that's gonna be the thing again in 2026. I think they treat the regular season like it's honestly a dress rehearsal and auditions for a lot of the season, as they just try to find what the right moves are for October, and that's probably going to be their mindset again this upcoming season.
Yeah, I agree. I think they're going to cruise. They're going to try to win games. Not like you go out there consciously trying to lose. And I do think some guys are going to have better seasons. I think Mookie Betts is not going to struggle for as much as he did, throughout the season. I think Teoscar is going to have a better, showing. Hopefully Max Muncy is better. Tommy Edman is he started off the season great, and then that ankle injury flared up and he just wasn't the same. And that offense lost some of its luster with it. But I'm not so much concerned about the position players as I am about the pitchers as far as health. What I will say about the position players is the fact that I do think this offense could benefit from one more bat, particularly from the left side. I think just to give them another spark in that lineup, I think is going to be necessary in order for them to repeat. They've added a spark in the bullpen in Edwin Diaz. Hopefully that works out well, and hopefully some of the other guys like Blake Trinan, Gratterall are healthy. Vesia bounces back from a devastating, off season for him, and even going back to the World Series. And that's awful. What happened, Tanner Scott bouncing back. So hopefully the bullpen will be fine. But if you can get one more bat in there to kind of give the rest of this offense a spark, I think that's going to be key right there, Kev. So we'll see how it all pans out. But I think 95, 96 wins sounds fair for how the team is currently constructed.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening to the Incline Dodgers podcast. Go ahead and leave us a comment if you're watching on playback. Let us know your New Year's wish list for the Dodgers. Unless something breaks tomorrow, we'll be back in 2026. But everyone, enjoy the new year, enjoy the holiday, and let's get recharged for a three-peat season for your Los Angeles Dodgers.